Hi everyone, welcome back to the Nick and Sanjee podcast, where we share our tips and tricks on how to start and grow a YouTube channel as we ourselves go on that journey. Today we are talking about Tom Noske, who is a digital content creator based here in Australia. And we're going to do one of our legendary deep dives where we talk a bit about this content creator, a bit around their stats, and then some of the things that we've noticed about this creator that we think helps make them quite successful, and maybe things that we might take away from this as well. So, Nick, tell us a bit about Tom, and I think this is someone that you suggested that we have a look at. How did you discover Tom, and what are some of your initial thoughts on him?
Yeah, I think I first discovered him maybe at the start of 2023, so start of last year. And I think I just found him on Instagram. And I think I was initially drawn to him. I can't remember the exact reel, but I found it quite relatable as a content creator. Because he was sharing about the struggles of content creation and some of the solutions and that sort of thing. And then just kind of followed him from there. And he's definitely grown a lot in the last couple of years. And it's kind of hard to categorize him in a particular niche. And I think he does that intentionally. Like I think he tries to stay away from being too niche, but I'd say he's kind of motivational, businessy, content creatory, videography, kind of like all those things meshed into one. But yeah, I just find him inspiring, and it's nice that he's a fellow Australian. It's kind of cool to see that people in our part of the world can make it work. So yeah.
Absolutely. I agree. I think we were talking a bit about his niche when we were I think I was trying to figure out, okay, who would his competitors be? And I think you pointed out he actually intentionally tries to stay out of that. But I think if you did have a look at it, I mean, for me, I get sort of vibes around him being similar to Olia, similar to like a Maddie and a Peter McKinnon. I think he is a filmmaker from background, and he sort of turned that into also building an actual online business. And that's, I guess, attractive to us around people who have passions that want to turn that into a business. And I agree. I think looking through some of his things, it does seem like he's figured out how to sort of build his social media stuff and point towards his products, which is often the key. So if you haven't heard of Tom Noske, I'll just give you some really high-level things about him. His biggest presence is really his Instagram page. He's got about 350,000 subscribers. And as you said, Nick, it's mainly motivational content with little tips and tricks over there, but also just kind of encouraging people, hey, what's stopping you from starting that passion project and getting into it? And it's very powerful stuff. And it's, the Australian accent is always very easy to identify in these things, which is kind of handy. But after a while, I think if you zoom out, you can kind of see what his strategy is, which is to connect you into one of his products, which is usually his live cohort or something like that. He's also got a presence on YouTube, which he started about 4 years ago, about 32,000 subscribers. So kind of mid or kind of on the lower end, I guess, of content creators on YouTube. 179 videos. But he's not that active. I think when we last checked, he had only done one about 7 months ago. His recent videos get about 6,000 views. He's had a couple of bangers. He's had one which got about 1 million on his desk setup, on his ideal desk setup, and it was quite a nice video. And then his third internet presence, you could say, is his website, where he sells his LUTs. He sells access to his time to build live cohort. And yeah, he's just got some interesting things in there from his personal brand side of things. And his products are, the LUTs, some simple effects on Photoshop or Premiere Pro, and also his Creator Media Kit, which we've actually talked about, Power Media Kits in the past, haven't we, Nick? Yeah. So, I mean, that's sort of Tom Noske in a bit of a nutshell. He's a lot more than that, and we'll kind of go into that. But I guess for the rest of this episode, we want to go into some of the things that we've noticed about him and we think works well for him, things that we should probably consider. So one of the first things I noticed about Tom when I started, I guess, looking into him for this episode was definitely his very distinct aesthetic. He's got the darker tones. And I think I was telling you, Nick, like as soon as I started watching some of his content, I was like, he's got a real Olia kind of vibe.
Yep.
and this could be like everyone's got the same vibe, but it's just only Ollie I've seen.
Yeah.
I think a lot of my other content that I consume, especially on the internet, is sometimes very bright, like the Ali Abdaal style, or just kind of I don't know what the term is, maybe like neutral. Like if you look at some of these these car content creators, it just looks like they just use the standard setting. They're
Yeah.
not trying to be slick in dark colors or whatnot. They're just like, this is the color of the car, so you
Yeah.
need to see it. Um, but
Like,
yeah, that
what do you think of that? Like, as
mm.
someone, yeah, who's just come across him, like, what's your impression or takeaway of that style?
Yeah, it's interesting. I think immediately the danger is I categorize him very quickly as
Mm,
okay, he's going to be similar to an Olia who is going to be about let me help you build something while you buy my product kind of thing.
okay.
Um, but I think it does because so many people use it now. It is a bit of a worry. Like it doesn't. I say it's distinct. It's obvious, um, because it's I guess different from the standard content form,
Mm,
but it's not distinct in kind of making him look that different from a lot of these online content creators that want to help you turn your passion project into money.
yep. Gotcha. Interesting.
But that being said, I think his audio, whatever he's doing for
Mm.
his audio, is amazing. Like I'd love to hear what he's actually like in person.
Yeah.
Um, because the audio quality is, and you know, the Australian voice, the Australian accent, the quality of his audio, very distinct. That is hard to compete against, I'd say. Whatever mic he's using is quite amazing. And he's consistent with that across Instagram and on YouTube, I noticed.
Yeah. Interesting.
Um, but yeah, that's some of my initial thoughts. What about you, Nick? What are some of the things you noticed?
I think, like I mentioned at the start, I think the big thing for me has always been relatability. Even though it's interesting hearing you talk about his aesthetic, because I think it does come across as kind of quite professional in like a videography sort of way,
Yep.
which almost is unrelatable because I think most people don't have the skills to produce content that looks
Yeah.
like that. And even me, like I don't think I could produce content yet that quite looks like that. If I put a lot of effort into it, maybe I could get close, but like it's a lot of it's not that relatable. So I think for me, it's more about the content of what he's saying and what he talks about that I
Mm.
find really relatable. And I've heard him talk about how he tries to create content for his past self. So he thinks, where was I 2 or 3 years ago, and what was I struggling with?
Yeah.
And then I'm going to create content that would help me in the past.
Yeah.
I think it's a really good approach. I try to have that approach with my content as well. I try to think about where I was 2 years ago, and there's obviously going to be lots of people who are in that place now that I could help, because I've got some degree of authority as well. Like I've got
Yeah.
that experience. I'm 2 years ahead, so I try to apply that to my own content. But the whole relatability thing, like I don't know. I'm trying to think about what exactly it is with Tom that I find really relatable. I think maybe it's that he comes across as honest in um, not sort of sugarcoating how tough the journey is, not
Mm.
sugarcoating how tough it is to be a content creator. What it takes. He talks about common fears and insecurities that that content creator have the struggle with money, all that type of stuff. So I think that's probably the big thing that I find relatable. And so for me,
Yeah.
I think I try and think, how can I incorporate relatability into my content? I've been thinking about it a lot lately. I've probably been talking about it on the podcast, but I'm still figuring that out. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like, what do you think, Sanjay? Like, especially in finance, like, because it is
Yeah.
more. We were talking about before. Like, our channels are kind of a bit more informational.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do we infuse personality and relatability into informational content?
Yeah. It's a good one because I think we've sort of talked about in the past as well. Yeah, you want to make content for based on your experience and where you were before, and I think that helps with if you are looking at like sort of technical things. You know what it was like to be a beginner. And I know a lot of my initial YouTube growth was around just how do you buy shares? Because that's such a big step. If, I've been buying shares since I was quite young. not necessarily successfully, but I knew how to do it.
Yeah.
And I kind of had to learn how to do it as well. But it's quite straightforward once you've done it a few times, but it's just a big step to go from
Mm.
not knowing to knowing. And then all little tweaks or all little things that you can do along the way, the places where it can blow up or not work for you. But I see what he's doing around the relatability is actually him just doing a really good job of understanding his customer, because
Mm.
I think he's understood very early on my main customer is going to be people who want to turn passion into money or struggling content creators.
Yeah.
And he's obviously done that work and research. And I sort of noticed this as well in one of his video around like how he made 300,000, where he talked about you really need to understand the customer and the customer experience.
Mm.
So I think now that he knows one of his key targets, let's not put him into a niche yet, but one of his key targets is struggling content creators or people who want to turn passion into money.
Mm.
He's identified very early what are the big things that seem to come up in all my cohorts, whenever I chat to people, in the comments, all of that. So for me, I think in the same way, I need to pay a bit more attention to what are the most common questions I get, what are my
Mm.
more popular videos, and how do I reinforce that message? Because I think we've talked about this. I'm like, if I make a video, I'm done with that topic.
Yeah.
But I think, the way Tom is talking about it, he's kind of like, you got to keep reinforcing things along the way. I'm
Yeah.
like, if I make one video on how to buy shares, I don't need to do another one.
Yeah.
But maybe there's a different way of doing that, or there's
Yeah.
a different kind of process of engaging someone around, oh, what's stopping you from buying shares? Let's talk about that. Yeah, but then I also have to avoid getting into trouble with various government organizations as well. So,
That's
yeah,
really
that was my thoughts on that reliability side.
that's really interesting because I'm sort of thinking, like with Tom, he's not relatable in all areas. Kind of like we just said, he's not relatable in terms of his production quality. And he also doesn't talk about like, his personal relationships. So he's not being relatable there.
Yeah.
He's not even being that relatable in terms of where he lives or what he does day to day. He's relatable around his topic.
Yeah.
And yeah, I won't say niche, but it kind of is. So maybe, yeah, like you say, maybe that is a good takeaway. Is it's about knowing who you're targeting and what their particular struggles are, and then being relatable around their struggles. So it's like he understands the pain of creating content and not feel like it goes anywhere. So he is open and vulnerable about that stuff, and then that connects with his target audience. So maybe for me, it's about trying to identify the pain points, if you will, of my target audience, and then being vulnerable about that, rather than just being vulnerable about just my life in general or my personality in general. It's like it's being more specific. So
yeah, I definitely I agree on that. I think around the content stuff. But that being said, like I think I think it's something that Tom can do more of, is more about him as a person. Because I think we grew to like people like the Peter McKinnons and
yeah,
Maddies and Ali. Well, Ali's careful. Ali is careful. He doesn't give that much away. But when Maddie started doing a little bit more about, here's my office, here's my family, um, Peter about his Ford Raptor, he's always talking about like, he wanted to like a new car.
yep,
You feel like, oh, I kind of know this person a bit more rather than this is how you use Photoshop. So there's definitely a balance.
That's so interesting. Because again, with Tom, it's like I feel like I relate to him, but I also don't feel like I connect with him that well. Like
Yes.
I don't feel like I'm his friend. Like I feel like yeah, because he doesn't share that much about his own, personal life. And so even with his content, I don't watch all of it. Like I'll watch the odd clip for a bit of a pick me up, a bit of motivation. But I don't follow everything because there's not necessarily a narrative like with Peter McKinnon or someone like that, like a story that you can kind of follow and get to know the character. So that's really interesting. I like that.
Tell me about his email list that you sort of noticed about him.
Yeah, like he was one of the first email lists that I subscribed to when I first went full time, and I kind of was starting to pay attention more to like people's newsletters to sort of get an
Mm.
idea of what people were doing. And I noticed myself always looking forward to reading his, which
Hmm.
isn't the case for everyone's newsletters. And so I think I sort of tried to analyze a bit what he was doing that I liked. And it's probably just the same stuff as what he's doing with his Instagram content, like sharing the struggles, making it relatable, keeping it down to earth, and writing it in an interesting way, an engaging way. But
Hmm.
I think he's really good. I think that's where he does most of his marketing for his digital products. As
Hmm.
again, I'm kind of seeing that everywhere. I think we talked about that before. As email list as being a powerful place to market your products. So yeah, I think he does a good job of creating good lead magnets as well, email magnets with free products. Like I've downloaded,
Yeah.
I think 2 of his free products. That might be how I first got into his email list in the first place, potentially.
Yeah, he's got like a free workbook or something.
Yeah,
I remember.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I found that really good. So
Okay.
again, I'm trying to incorporate that into my content. I'm trying to create
Hmm.
more free products and think about each time I create a video, what's added value I can provide with a free product that I could share and
Yeah.
collect emails.
So I was looking at his videos and I noticed one of the things his videos, even though he doesn't do them that often, his videos are actually quite watchable. Again, I think his audio is amazing. That really helps a lot. He's
Yep.
got good visual aesthetics. They're kind of consistent, good use of B-roll, nice and dynamic. But his videos are also quite straightforward. He gets straight to the point, which I
Mm,
think us as Australians are getting quite good at. I find a lot of the Australian content creators are quite good at just being like, bang,
mm,
here's what you need to know.
mm,
Um, whereas some other content creators do seem to wonder a bit on the topic.
mm,
But then the other thing is he's quite high paced in his content as well. Like it is moving, even though he's telling you about this is how you start like a business or this is how I grew my business. It's still quite a high paced video, which I kind of enjoyed.
yep,
I enjoyed his video on his $300,000 kind of build, like how he's achieved that. And he talked about his live cohort and creating a digital product and the power of iterating it. Um, so he was saying, sometimes people will take their time away from content creation and sit down and make this amazing product as number one. Whereas he said you should really be doing more of an iterative approach. Maybe start with like a simple workshop, a 90-minute workshop. Talk about some key topics, see what comes up. Whatever
mm,
comes up out of that, then you can make a proper product out of that. Because as you've made your workshop, you're earning money. Then you develop a product coming out of your workshop. You know what everyone's asking. You make your money. You run that a couple of times. You hear what the feedback is. People say, we don't really need this section as much. We prefer more on this. And then you iterate, iterate, iterate. I really like that. I feel like
mm.
I don't think he's an engineer, but I felt like he's got that kind of engineering mind, sort of systems thinking. How do I connect stuff and iterate to make it better? Yeah, I'm not sure if what you've sort of seen and what you've seen in terms of his some of his online stuff.
Yeah, no, I've definitely heard him talk about that as well. I've heard a few other guys talk about it as well. Like, I can't remember if I've talked to you about Modest Mitkus. I think his name is.
I've heard the name. Yep.
He's a guy on Twitter or X who does Notion templates, and I bought one of his courses, and he talked about the same thing about
Yep.
starting with either just a basic sort of MVP product to get some feedback early on and then iterate from there, or to just directly ask your audience for some feedback before you start developing something. Because he talked about the same thing, like, a lot of people will spend ages working on a product they think is perfect, and then they try and sell it and no one wants it because they didn't nail, what their target audience actually wanted.
Yeah.
So I've also been thinking about that with my content and how I can approach trying to get that feedback and information from my audience. I think part of it is my consulting calls. I've been getting some good information from
Great.
clients in consulting calls about what people are interested in, what they're wanting to know, what they're wanting to learn from me specifically. So that's been really useful. And
Yeah.
then the other thing is my free products. And that was one thing that Modest talked about actually was if you create a bunch of different free products, some will stand out as more popular than others. And then you have a
Yeah.
good sense from that data what a good product might be. So currently, like a lot of my free products around AI, image generation and stuff like that are really popular. So I'm
Awesome.
constantly trying to think about maybe I could create some sort of simple course, or still figuring that out. But again, I think it's a really good way to do it because it's like relatively low cost, low risk. If you start with something small and just build from there. So I think it's a really good approach. And following on from that, I think one other thing I noticed, I think he does really well is landing pages. And again, I'm referring back to Modest again because Modest talks about this. But I think Tom Noske has nailed a really good landing page. I don't know what he's currently got up on his website for his time to build.
Oh, I actually have it. I've wrote it down. What? Oh, there was no, wait. Oh yeah, here we go. I am a YouTuber, artist, and endurance athlete with a passion for creativity. What an intro.
Yeah. But then on his actual, maybe it's not available on his main website currently because he does cohorts like at different times of the year, so maybe it's not currently available. But if you're on his email list, he sends out a landing page specifically for his course. And it's one of the most impressive landing pages I've seen. Like, I don't know if he did it himself or if he outsourced it. I assume he outsourced it, but I have no idea. But it's just really slick. But it goes through. It took me like 5 minutes to scroll through the whole thing because it's really extensive. Like, it's got kind of his backstory. It explains, the common pain points that people are getting with content creation, the solution you're going to get, all the value you're going to get out of the course, all this type of stuff. And it really convinced me. Like, I was really close to enrolling. And I think it's also a matter of he's built the trust with me. He's given away those 3 products that were really valuable to me. So I've got that level of trust with him already. He's built rapport with me through his content. And then through his email list as well, there's a rapport there through the email list. And then that adds, all that credibility adds up to me being very close to buying his course. If I had more money, I probably would. But again, I think there's a lot of takeaways for us who are looking to start building products. And you can use, I think, a good landing page with any product. It doesn't have to be a course. And then the other thing, I think, probably the last thing I noticed particularly about Tom is I think he's really good at Instagram. And we talked about how he's most active and his main platform really is Instagram. Like, he's not that active on YouTube. It's not really a priority for him. But he clearly knows the algorithm of Instagram really well. Like, I think he nails his hooks. Like, I got a few here. He started off one with saying, "What are you afraid of?" And then another one was like, "You know what's crazy?" And then another one was, "Here's why not sticking to a niche is the key reason I've been able to build my business to over 100K a month." And it's like, who would not want to watch that? Like, it's like, if you hear that, you're scrolling, you hear that, it's like, oh man, I want to see this. And then even like you were saying before, his videos are quite quick and punchy, and there's a lot going on. And I think that all plays into the Instagram algorithm, like high retention, high rewatchability. So I think he's doing very well on the actual platform of Instagram.
Awesome. Well, there you go. So that is Tom Noske, a little deep dive onto him. We'll have to, we're obviously keeping track of all the episodes we do, but I think we'll have to sort of do a bit of a cycle where we might come back and visit him again in a year and see how he's growing, see what he's done out there. But if you did enjoy that episode, please do check out some of our other episodes where we've done some deep dives on various types of content creators. We did do Olia, we did do Auto Alex, which is like a car YouTube channel, and many more of those to come. We're trying to find a bit of a balance between being purely about content creation, but also studying other content creators as well. So with that being said, leave a like, a comment, a star wherever you see us. And otherwise, we'll see you in the next episode. Bye for now.
Bye for now.